My name is Audrey Grant. I'm a visual artist based in Edinburgh, and I work with painting, photography, installation, and most recently moving image. I've just completed a one-year position as artist in residence at the University of Stirling, based with the art collection here. And so I'm in the Pathfoot building where I currently have Memoria, which is the exhibition, the culmination of a year's research and making from that project. It was interesting when you asked about that particular artwork, and I thought, oh my goodness, it's that thing where it's almost ubiquitous. You know, it's part of the furniture, and so it's easy to just you see it but you don't see it kind of thing. So it made me reflect a little bit on it and look up Mary Martin, who I really didn't know very much about, and clearly it was very sad that she died before she was able to see the final piece installed. But actually, so the two things I really found out was it was a female artist and working on quite a large monumental scale, actually, with a kind of sculptural wall work. So I thought that was actually quite exciting. I mean, the thing that struck me, obviously I think my understanding is she started off probably painting and then moved into more abstract work and then developed these kind of wall pieces, which to me are obviously have to be quite technically realised, which of course all artworks have a sort of technical element that you have to work out, whether you're working with painting materials or whether you're working with pieces of aluminium that need to be cut or sculpted or fashioned in some kind of way. Yeah. So, I mean, that was the main thing that interested me about it, that she was able to create a design and then have that executed on that scale. Because one of the things that I seem to talk about quite a bit with other artists and female artists is this idea that women can make big works of art. We can work on a big scale, and we should be working on a big scale. Plenty men do. And actually, so good for Mary Martin as a sort of early pioneer of doing sort of large scale wall works. And I think, I mean, it is rather beautiful. I suspect it's a complete nightmare to maintain or keep clean. Maybe they have to sort of dust it down every few years. But, you know, it is that sort of interplay of movement and light which makes it so striking. And I wondered whether there was any sort of musical influences in terms of rhythms or beats or something like that had influenced the work as well. I don't know, but when I look at it, you could sort of see it as a kind of musical composition, or, you know, how would a musician respond to that? You could almost perhaps hear the rhythm as the interplay of the different elements of the piece.
That's interesting. I've never thought of it like that. Yeah, that is very interesting.
It's just music's very relevant to me, and I listen to a lot of music when I'm in the studio, particularly classical and opera, actually. But I mean, obviously, you know, there's all sorts of music, you know, because it is a very contained structural piece. You know, she'll have thought it all out very carefully to execute it in that way. And I'm sure she didn't do it all herself. She probably had to have quite a lot of help in constructing it.
It was built in, I think it's Heggie and Aitchison in Edinburgh. So while she oversaw the whole process, she didn't actually construct that one. Yeah.
But I mean, I understand that. I mean, I've been working at the university on a couple of pieces. So there's a couple of sculptural pieces in my exhibition, Memoria, which are pieces of gate pier fragments. So big bits of stone that were originally part of a gate pier at the old East Lodge that had been sitting in a maintenance yard gathering moss, literally. And I found them and said, I want to do something with them. I want to bring them back out into the world. So this idea of bringing in objects, what we were saying just earlier, objects that were used in a practical way, that were part of the gates of this house, and then now they're repurposed into an artwork with an inscription on them. So I find that really interesting. And you mentioned about Mary Martin being interested in bringing in other elements from industry or whatever else into the art world, and I'm very much interested in that in my own work, and about how bringing in found objects or other kinds of materials that then come into the art world. So there's another piece down there, which is the old copper boiler parts from Garden Cottage, which is in a disused, state now. And somebody pointed them out. They were in in a workshop at the Greens and Gardens department, literally gathering dust under a shelf. And again, I pulled them out, and I didn't clean them up or anything, and I put them in and called them archivium, because I like this idea that these objects actually form part of the archive of the university.
Yeah.
And there's another element, another material in there called red rot, which comes from the actual archive in the university library.
Right.
And the archivist there gave it to me, and it's little particles of red leather. So in some old journals, leather journals that have maybe in the past been kept not quite at the right temperature, and they're in a box, so when they're lifted up for any reason, little bits of the leather fall off,
right,
literally. And I had some interesting conversations with Rosie Almula, who's the archivist there, and saying, can you keep me anything, even if you think it's completely bonkers and completely weird, I'll probably want to use it.
Yeah.
And she said one day, I wonder if you like this, it's called red rot. And I'm like, I love that, you know. So there's a sprinkling of that in that piece archivium downstairs. Right. So again, just that idea of bringing different elements into the art world and shining a different light on them, but also layering something else on top, which adds another meaning, whether it's historical or it's contemporary or often both. So there's a kind of layered thinking that goes on into it as well.
Yeah.
Maybe Mary Martin, we're not able to ask her, but perhaps she thought like that too, I don't know.
Yeah. I think she probably did. It was funny because I spoke to another artist that said, I wonder how she would feel about it being moved from where she installed it, because sometimes artists can be quite precious about where it is, because it did really need to be lower down, because she wanted it to be like a playful aspect that kind of people could, you know, go and look and see different shapes and sit and look at it, and it moved but it was, talking to Fiona, it was a modular piece, so it could be broken up and moved around the university, and they're actually thinking about doing that with it, which would be interesting. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's quite interesting actually, because Sarah was asking me about, there's some smaller fragments from the gate piers that I also used in another piece called Air 3 Fragments, and she was saying, now they have a relevance to you because it was you that found them, so you have a kind of artistic right over them, even though they don't actually belong to me. But what if another artist wanted to use them, you know, would I be okay with that? And then I suddenly thought, you know, I found them, they're my artwork, you know. But there's also a thing that happens is once you create a work of art and it's purchased or acquired or sold, it moves on from you, and you have to let it go. I mean, and maybe, you know, some artists feel more kind of connected to these things, but I've always felt that actually, in order for the next artwork to be made, you have to be able to let go of what you've made in the past. So in some ways, I don't really want to see my work too many times, because I'll just think, I want to change it. I want to go, why did I let it out of the studio looking like that? It's not quite finished, is it? Or if I could just have had a bit more time, I would have done this and that. And you go like, no, the point is the artwork leads to another artwork. The painting leads to another painting. Yeah. And that's the kind of art of creativity and longing for something. You keep longing. You think you're going to get there, but you never quite do. Yeah. But it's the journey that keeps you going, sort of thing.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about like the building itself as well, and like, has that inspired anything that you've done, and has it been kind of inspiring being in this building? This building's so unique with these huge windows and vistas, and like it kind of brings the environment in, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, the inside, outside, or the outside inside, because there's so much light. And it is a really kind of iconic building. But ironically, actually, my brief was actually to explore the landscape. So every day that I came here, I would come and check in and have a chat with Sarah, the head of the collections here at the university, and the others in the team about what I was doing, or, you know, if there was any meetings to be had or people to see. And then I would go out into the landscape. And so I had sort of various walking routes that I would take up into the Hermitage Woods or along the Coffin Road, or along to the Greens and Grounds department, because they lent me a greenhouse where I could start to store found objects that I've in the woods or round and about. So I had a whole lot of stuff that I never used in the exhibition, because it's a bit like editing. Yeah. You know, you collect all this material, you need much more than you actually potentially are going to use, and then you have to assimilate and decide which pieces are going to have. So it might still be along there in the greenhouse. There's all pieces of all sorts of things, but they've probably chucked them out now.
I did want to ask you as well, I watched the video this morning, which was amazing. I found it really, really enjoyable watching it. But what were the power plant things? Were they in a greenhouse? Were they heaters, or What was that?
Oh, right. So, yeah, they were in a greenhouse. There was the lighting, those white lights. So there's a
Yeah.
greenhouse along in the Greens and Grounds department, and I think one of the university departments use it, and they shine lights on certain plants, obviously to help them grow, I guess. And I just found them really interesting because I found them like quite spooky as well.
They're very
and
sci-fi,
so all
aren't
my
they?
photographs were taken from through the windows, which were often were painted, had bits of white paint on them, I think, just to stop different kinds of light getting in.
Right.
So there was a sort of misty glass that I was photographing through, and all my photographs are done on an old Nikon 35mm,
Right.
so using black and white film camera. And then what I did with the one down there, it's actually been overlaid on another image. So using Photoshop, I selected the images, and some worked better than others. But again, it was this idea of the landscape having a history, and there's a quote down there, landscape is the memory of history, this idea that landscape, like the archaeologist, when we did the project last year, was digging through the layers of earth to discover the truth, to discover the layers, what came before. So it's actually still all there to be seen if you understand where to look or how to look. And so I like this idea of layering images to create the sense of a new kind of mythical landscape that also suggested, the past or other things that may have happened on it. So these were quite experimental. I had never done that kind of work before, worked with photography to that degree. But the point of the residency was to expand my practice, to have the time to actually experiment and try new things, and fail at some of them, and try again, and fail again, and fail better, as Beckett would say, and then keep going. And so there's some of those images in the film, and then there's a couple. There's the big vinyl a gallery of the Coffin Road with fragments and Logie Kirk in the distance. So the fragments are actually a photograph from the maintenance yard where I found the gate pier fragments, and it was a photograph I took there, and I layered it on top of the one of the looking down the road towards Logie Kirk, and it suddenly becomes like, what's going on in that image?
Yeah.
What is that? What are those fragments? It could be fragments of the past that are still visible in the presence. So I was sort of playing around with those kinds of ideas, I guess.
It really confused me at first. I thought, was there a power plant here originally? Because that's what it says on it. And I'm like, what was that?
So it's those lights. Yeah, they're just strange. I was just fascinated. I've got like so many pictures of them that I took, I was very struck by those greenhouses.
They're so out of place, aren't they? They feel very out of place.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing about the Mary Martin thing as well. A lot of the other artists have said it feels out of place. It feels sci-fi and alien.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it fits. And some people thought it was part of the architecture of the building. They didn't realise it was an art piece.
Yeah. But I mean, the building is incredible, the Pathfoot. So, I mean, I did really enjoy being here. But as I said, most of my time was spent actually outdoors, and that was the kind of brief that I had to explore the landscape. And so I explored it primarily through photography, through collecting objects. And then last year we did a special project up at the old Hermitage in Hermitage Woods.
Right.
Which is a sort of ruinous structure now, with Murray Cook, the Stirling archaeologist, and his team of volunteers. We did a dig, and I used Super 8 film, audio recording, and some black and white photographs, and I created the film down there that's in the exhibition. Really as a sort of, I mean, for me, it was the first time I'd ever made a film, and I had help from an actual filmmaker called Susan Kemp to help put it together into a proper thing. But I really enjoyed doing it. And again, it's a kind of layered film as well. So I see it as quite a painterly film, because I am a painter. And so quite a lot of my attitude towards things, or inquiry towards things, has that kind of painter sensibility about it, the layering and the of things. So
that's amazing. Okay, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I've got one final question, which is, what do you think of like art in universities like this? Do you think it's valuable? Do you think it's like... I was quite surprised how many universities had art collections from this time period when this building was built, and I'm surprised now that a lot don't. Is it valuable?
I think it's so important, because in some ways these are public institutions, they're national institutions, and so they hold so many things. I mean, they hold many collections, not just art collections. They call science collections, geology collections, all kinds of things. So they are places, they're libraries, they're seats of learning. and also art is part of that. You know, I don't see it as it has to have an equal status in that. So for them to collect art, and I think probably each university maybe has a slightly different focus or emphasis on what they collect and how they put that together. I mean, I know at Stirling, you know, they don't have a sort of purpose-built gallery. They use the Pathfoot spaces effectively as gallery spaces, and you know, that's their kind of thing. And so art is everywhere. I mean, we were sitting in the dining room and we're surrounded by art, and all the walls in the corridor. So there's a lot of art here. So there's two things I think about that. One, it becomes ubiquitous, so people stop noticing it. But equally, you almost are, by a sort of osmosis, being affected by the art anyway. So even by walking through a space, it's a bit like walking through Venice or Florence, and it's an aesthetic, artistic experience just being there. And so it must have some kind of, you'd like to think it has some kind of effect on you. The other thing is with a gallery, with a dedicated gallery space, people make a choice to go into it and a choice to look and see, or not, as the case may be. So the same as if the students and the people that work in the building, they have a choice whether to stop and look. And you do occasionally see people just catching something out the corner of their eye and stopping for a moment to look at it. So I think it's brilliant. I think we need art. We desperately need art more than ever because it helps us understand what it is to be human, really. So I think I'm all for it in universities and anywhere that can possibly, you know, help develop the creative life and of our society.
That's kind of why I really like the constructionists when I started, it was raining, when I started looking into it, just because they really did want to put it in all sorts of libraries, hospitals, public spaces. That was their thing, really. But is there anything else you want to say that you haven't said?
No, it's just to say, I mean, I had a fantastic year at the university as their artist in residence, and I'm back today because it's the last week of the Memoria exhibition, which ends on the 9th of August. Although the work in Gallery 4 is going to remain up for a few more months, which is really nice. So yes, it feels like I can't believe that's the year in, and it's been a very rich and enriching experience, and a lovely team to work with in the art collection. So, you know, I've just been delighted to be part of it.
Well, we've been glad to have you.
Well, thank you very much. I hope that's been useful.
Space. That's been amazingly useful. Thank you so much. This podcast was created by Nicola Foley and hosted on Buzzsprout. Music from Pixabay. Thank you so much to Audrey Grant for speaking to me. I really appreciate you being here with me. Join me again next time.